3 Occupy Central co-founders and 6 others go on trial. Appeals hearing for 7 police officers jailed for beating an Occupy protester begins. And the first visit to Brunei by a Chinese head of state in 13 years.
Good evening. 3 Occupy Central co-founders and 6 others went on trial at the district court today. All defendants pleaded not guilty to their public nuisance-related charges. Pinky Wong has our top story.
We want universal suffrage, the defendants chanted with their supporters outside the court. Because of the large number of defendants involved, the district court hearing was held in the courtrooms of the West Kowloon Law Courts building. All 9 defendants pleaded not guilty to the charges in relation to street protests around Central in 2014. 3 co-founders of Occupy Central, Benny Tai, Chan Kin-men, and Chu Yu-ming, face 1 count of conspiracy to commit public nuisance, 1 count of inciting others to cause public nuisance, and 1 count of inciting people to incite others to cause public nuisance each. In his opening remarks, senior counsel Andrew Bruce, representing the prosecution, argued the trio's call to occupy Central with love and peace by overcrowding roads was already a conspiracy to commit public nuisance. The prosecution also highlighted their deliberation days, speeches, and fundraising activities to urge citizens to participate. Bruce described those actions as calculated and unreasonable. Former legislator Lee Wing-tat faces 1 count of incitement, while other defendants, lawmakers Tanya Chan and Siu Ka-chun, League of Social Democrats Vice Chairman Raphael Wong, and former student leaders Tommy Chung and Eason Chung, faced 2 counts of incitement each. The prosecution said the lawmakers and former student leaders stayed in Tin Mei Avenue in late September of 2014. Their call for more people to join the banquet was an act of joint enterprise. At least 5 video clips were shown in court today, including interviews and speeches of the defendants. Prosecutors plan to call 6 witnesses to testify in the coming weeks. They include police superintendents and commanders deployed to Wan Chai, Central, and Admiralty during the Occupy movement. Thank you all. TVB News.
Appeals hearings for 7 police officers jailed for beating an Occupy activist began at the Court of Appeal today. As Haley Joe reports, a defense lawyer slammed the lower court judgment as outrageous and baseless.
At the High Court today, the 7 police officers started an appeal against their convictions and sentences. In February last year, they were found guilty of assault, occasioning actual bodily harm, and sentenced to 2 years in jail. It came after the airing of TBB news footage that appeared to show the officers beating up activist Ken Jeong in a dark corner near the Tamar protest site in 2014. A large number of officers were deployed that night to clear protesters of the Occupy Central movement. The counsel representing one of the appellants, Chief Inspector Wong Cho-shing, disagreed with the lower court's decision. He said the judge was wrong in law in accepting TBB news footage that wasn't properly authenticated. He argued there are 49 seconds missing between the first and the second shots of the footage. Therefore, it cannot be relied upon as an accurate depiction of the event. Also, it was downloaded from the internet, which undermines the originality of the evidence. Then, an error in using that footage to authenticate other footage shot by other news media submitted as evidence. The lawyer suggested an error for the judge to identify defendants by their clothing, as hundreds of police officers were dressed similarly. The lawyer of Senior Inspector Lau Chuk-nai argued the district court judge had wrongly identified his client by relying on digitally edited photographs. The appeal hearing is scheduled to take 3 days, and all 7 policemen have been suspended from duty since they were arrested in 2014. Haley Joe, TVB News.
The High Court ruled today that restrictions imposed on the use of a protest site outside the government headquarters are unconstitutional. That's as the Director of Administration fenced off the East Wing forecourt of the central government offices after it became a flashpoint for protests back in 2014. Following a legal challenge, a citizen noted it's unlawful for the government to ban the public from using the site on weekdays and Saturdays. Authorities argued the restrictions are needed for normal operation, but the judge said it was wrong in principle to think that the government has a choice to grant access to the area just because it's the property owner.
The government is searching for candidates to become the MTR Corporation's next chairman. This is the term of the current chairman, Frederick Ma, has been extended for 6 more months until June next year. Since being appointed to the post 2 years ago, Ma's time with the railway company has been plagued by scandals such as construction problems on the Sha Tin to Central Link. He had twice tried to resign, but Chief Executive Carrie Lam convinced him to stay.
President Xi Jinping agreed to upgrade China's relations with Brunei to a strategic cooperative partnership. This comes during the first visit to the Southeastern Asian country by a Chinese head of state in 13 years. Xi was welcomed by Brunei's Sultan Haji Hassan Al Bolkiah in the capital. The two leaders are expected to witness the signing of a host of agreements. They include economic, trade, and people-to-people exchanges. Brunei is the second stop of Xi's ongoing Asia-Pacific tour. He kicked off his tour last Friday with a visit to Papua New Guinea. That's where he also attended this year's Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit. He is slated to arrive in the Philippines tomorrow, the final stop of his current trip. In the U.S. state of Florida, outgoing Republican Governor Rick Scott has been declared the winner of a Senate race that triggered a recount of votes. Scott competed against incumbent Democrat Bill Nelson, who conceded the race. According to official returns posted Sunday, Scott led Nelson by slightly more than 10,000 votes. This after Republicans, including President Donald Trump, accused the recount process of being marred by fraud. Brenda Snipes, the supervisor of elections in Florida, admitted her office had misplaced more than 2,000 ballots. She officially resigned last night.
Richardson, 2001.
British Prime Minister Theresa May has warned rebels within her own party that toppling her from power would only worsen the Brexit process. This as the embattled leader seeks to finalize her much maligned divorce agreement from the European Union this week. Jeff Tang reports.
British Prime Minister Theresa May has a mutiny on her hands. The besieged leader remains on a collision course with a group of lawmakers from her Conservative Party as she tries to navigate Britain through the Brexit fiasco. The rebels are seeking to gather the numbers to trigger a no-confidence vote against her. But a defiant May insisted quitting is not an option at this crucial juncture in Brexit negotiations and fired a dire warning to those looking to topple her from power.
Now, a change of leadership at this point isn't going to make the negotiations any easier. What it will do is bring in a degree of uncertainty. That's uncertainty for people and their jobs. It is a risk that actually we delay the negotiations, and that's a risk that Brexit gets delayed or frustrated. I'm clear people voted for us to leave.
May pointed out this week will be critical for the success of the Brexit talks, and that she will travel to Brussels to meet with European leaders ahead of an emergency European Council summit on November 25th. That's when the draft 585-page legally binding withdrawal agreement is set to be signed off. In order to oust May, 48 letters of no confidence are needed from Conservative lawmakers to trigger a leadership challenge vote. A prominent Conservative politician dismissed suggestions that the party already has the 48 letters.
How soon would you reveal, had you received those 48 letters?
Well, it's very clear in the rules of the party intended to be an expeditious thing. It's a nonsense when people suggest that anybody would hang around. But as you know, I don't comment on the substance of it.
Meanwhile, opposition leader Jeremy Corbyn said while a second Brexit referendum is an option for the future, the government should be focused on renegotiating a better deal.
We'll vote against this deal because it doesn't meet our tests. We do not believe it serves the interests of this country. Therefore, the government would have to go back to the EU and renegotiate rapidly.
The draft agreement has been anything but popular since it was announced last week. It envisions Britain leaving the EU as planned on March 29th next year, but staying inside the single market and bound by its rules until the end of December 2020. Several of May's key cabinet members, including her Brexit minister, have quit out of protest to what they see as a bad deal that would leave Britain a vassal state. Jeff Tang, TVB News.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has urged his coalition partners not to bring down the government, citing security challenges. Netanyahu also hinted at future military action against Israel's enemies. This as he made last-ditch efforts to avoid a collapse of his government, weakened by the resignation of his defense minister. Avigdor Lieberman quit last week over what he called the government's lenient policy towards an upsurge of cross-border violence with Palestinian militants in the Gaza Strip. That left Netanyahu's coalition with only a majority of only one seat in parliament. Political pundits predict a snap election as soon as March 2019 instead of November as scheduled.
And still ahead in our newscast, more than 1.3 million Hong Kong people live in poverty. 24-hour accident and emergency services at Tin Shui Wai Hospital to begin on Wednesday. And a locally designed toothbrush that can clean up all dental surfaces.
別人笑我太瘋癲，我笑他人看不穿。
大師，你輩份咁高，何解喺度跳手指舞呢？
睇落就係跳舞，但係實際上我係同手指熱身，咁我就可以更加靈活運用發興全新論證網站嘅互動畫圖功能。
發興全新論證網站嘅互動畫圖功能？
冇錯啦。網站有唔同嘅畫圖工具，波動市況可以助你量度股價潛在升跌幅。
聽講個圖可以 save 低 send 俾朋友喎。
冇錯啦，畫完之後仲可以 send 俾親朋好友，分享睇法，集思廣益。所以話發興網係我呢個大師
同我呢個大師必備嘅投資網站。
Welcome back to TVB News. 5 people are running in this Sunday's Legislative Council by-election to fill a Kowloon West geographical constituency seat. We'll profile one candidate every night, Monday through Friday this week. Tonight, Elmi Lung tells us more about Ng Dick Hay.
Ng Dick Hay calls this home, a subdivided flat in Sham Shui Po, no more than 50 square feet in area. The IT professional moved in a month ago to experience the city's poverty issues firsthand. He's running on an election platform that calls for tenancy control, an increase in public housing supply, and the introduction of more doctors from abroad. He hopes to attract young voters this time after failing to win a Hong Kong Island seat in another LegCo by-election in March. I want to challenge people's political views and lead Hong Kong forward, he said. The 54-year-old reported no political affiliations and is against Hong Kong independence. The other 4 candidates in this race are Judy Zhang, Lee Chuk-yang, Frederick Fung and Chen Hoi-yan. Elmi Long, TVB News.
The number of Hong Kong people living in poverty went up to nearly 1.38 million last year. The figure is a 9-year high, and officials say the government faces challenges in dealing with the problem. Sharon Tang reports.
Is the city's poverty situation getting worse? Today, the government made public its analysis of the local poverty situation in 2017 with this definition of poverty.
The poverty line is set at 50% of the median monthly household income before taxation and social welfare transfer, and that is before the government's policy intervention.
The Chief Secretary added that poverty figures may have been overstated when the household's assets and liabilities were excluded in the process. Last year, the city's poverty rate reached 20.1%, representing a year-on-year increase of 0.2 percentage points. With the help of government's cash benefits such as the old age allowance, the number of Hong Kong people living in poverty dropped to around 1 million. While the poverty rate among the elderly fell by 1.2 percentage points, child poverty went up by 0.3 percentage points. The authorities say there were challenges all the way.
Primarily, they come from families, big households, with just one breadwinner and living with one old family member. Every year, 60,000 Hong Kong residents enter the senior citizens bracket. And also, household size becomes smaller and smaller. Now, all these really are posing a challenge in terms of statistical analysis.
However, several lawmakers and community groups questioned why the figures kept rising with various policy interventions. They also worry the poverty situation will worsen if the city faces any economic downturn in the future. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
3 men appeared in Sha Tin Magistracy today to face manslaughter charges in connection with last week's fatal fight in Tai Wai. The suspects are aged 29 to 40. They were handed over to the Correctional Services Department after the magistrate agreed to adjourn the case until mid-January next year. A man was pronounced dead at hospital after the fallout from a dispute over car repairs turned physical.
A fugitive recaptured after 36 hours on the run was brought to court this morning. He's been charged with one count of escaping from lawful custody. 2 other Chinese businessmen linked to the case also appeared at Eastern Magistracy. They face charges of aiding and abetting that escape. Arrestee Leon Lee escaped from police custody at Queen Mary Hospital last week. He was held for breaching a court order after being charged with possessing a fake identity card in 2015.
Well, in 2 days' time, Tin Shui Wai Hospital will extend its accident and emergency services from 12 to 24 hours a day. Mixed specialty wards will also enter service on Wednesday, providing 32 beds. The arrangement is aimed at relieving pressure on nearby Pak Oi and Tuen Mun hospitals.
And a new toothbrush design by faculty at the University of Hong Kong promises to make daily toothbrushing easier and more enjoyable. More on that from Christy Lung.
Take a closer look at what seems like an ordinary toothbrush. Unlike other products in the market, it features 6 types of bristle bundles for full coverage of all dental surfaces. The NJ toothbrush is named after its designers, Honorary Associate Professor Dr. Ng Si-jun and Professor Jing Li Jian at HKU. The pair spent 2 years on the design, which promises a thorough cleanup in just 2 minutes. The toothbrush's rail track design allows it to run along the dental arc without stopping, as well as niches that are often hard to reach. Dr. Ng, who also designs precision tools for space exploration, said this was no easy task.
This is more difficult to tackle than a space tool because everything is passive, no motors, no electronics. To make it simple, cheap, and you have to change everything, and how to do one tracking, one without any stop, and on target. Everything on target, and also minimal abrasion.
The university has already applied for a patent and is speaking to manufacturers. Hopefully, the new toothbrush will hit the market in 2 years. Christy Lung, TVB News.
And from all of us, thanks for joining us.
Bye for now.